Immortals Fenyx Rising gives me flashbacks to a relatively recent Ubisoft game that I'd rather forget. If you don't know, Immortals Fenyx Rising is what became of Gods and Monsters, which is the game that was essentially Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where it made specifically to rip off Breath of the Wild as opposed to The Witcher 3. It appears to have undergone massive changes and is now a vastly different looking game. There's a whole lot less green and a whole lot more nice environments, to be fair to it. Aesthetically it looks less boring, but in the end of the day I still don't know what to make of this game because it gives me massive flashbacks to Odyssey. A Ubisoft RPG clearly heavily inspired by ancient Greek mythology. I'm going to find it really hard to be fair to this game considering how much I genuinely despise Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and this game is developed by the same studio and seems relatively similar when you talk about it at face value. The game also makes no secret of reusing certain assets, but I'm going to do my best, I promise. Now, this might just be me, but this looks like the game that Ubisoft Quebec wanted to make when they did Odyssey. It's incredibly similar, which makes me think that they never wanted to do Odyssey to begin with. They wanted to do a game about ancient Greek mythology and all that, but they didn't want the constraints of Assassin's Creed. And so the pillocks who run Ubisoft went, yeah, sure, that's fine, but first do Assassin's Creed. And so they just made a concept of what they wanted their game to be. I don't think the game looks terrible. I think, however, it does run the serious risk of falling for the same issues that Assassin's Creed Odyssey had. Despite all the strong reviews for the game, it's undeniable that it suffered from a few problems. The game focused on quantity as opposed to quality. There'll be a load of quests, but none of them would be particularly interesting. Most would comprise of fetch quests and box ticking exercises. The gameplay would be hack and slash combat focused, except all the enemies would be pretty simple to take down. It would just take a lot of time because they took so much damage. Meanwhile, there'd be absurd numbers flying off your screen because apparently epic RPGs do that. On top of this, the open world was uninteresting with nothing really new and intriguing to explore or captivate people, and what is there are caves and bandit camps, all of which are box ticking objectives, so there's nothing like an interesting story you can find there, and whatever quests you might find in the open world often wind up being fetch quests and box ticking exercises as well. As a result, I'm serious when I say this, the most interesting thing you could do in Assassin's Creed Odyssey was climb Zeus's cock. Furthermore, the leveling system was stupidly steep to push microtransactions with an XP boost, which, I mean, it's a single player RPG, why are you trying to monetize it at all? And furthermore, the game's full of false features such as a bounty system which you can pay off in the world map, which makes no sense because it actually revolves around no in-game interaction. I'm seeing the telltale signs of a few of those issues in this game based on the demo that we've seen. Bear in mind that we haven't seen too much, so do be fair to the game, and I guess that would be concerning. First thing I noticed was the open world looks pretty open, but in it can you really see anything of interest that isn't copied and pasted a few meters later? I don't know, it looks a bit bland and bare bones. Obviously, this is only one area. The environment's role at the end makes it look a little bit more interesting. As you can see that the game certainly does have aesthetic variety, so while that's all well and good, we've just got to hope that the game actually has the content to keep that interesting, and by content I mean actual content, as opposed to a cheap rehash of something that they've done 5 minutes earlier. They can make the game look as great as they want with promotional material, of course, and Ubisoft Quebec unfortunately are going to have to earn my trust because after Odyssey, the studio has a bit of a shoddy reputation with me. But something about it just seems Odyssey-esque. The occasional Odyssey sound effect that you'll hear, the hack and slash looking nature of the game, and the damage sponge bosses, what on earth? Though I will say with the abilities in this, it does look remarkably better than Odyssey's damage sponge bosses, so that's something. But I think a boss fight should be fun and engaging, as opposed to just whack this guy until the health bar disappears. They should be challenging, require you to time things right and deal massive amounts of damage if you make a mistake, but also allow you to deal enough damage if you do get things right for it to not last forever. In fact, with the boss fight they showed with the Iron Giant, they didn't even show the full thing. They cut it down to points because they knew that it took forever. And even in the parts that they did show, it did look like it required a lot of chipping away to defeat certain enemy types. Using abilities does look massively effective, but how much building up do you need to do before you can use them? I just love that they've cut down this boss fight in the demo because it takes too long, and Ubisoft knows it. Art style wise, I will say this, the game does look really nice. It's not going for photorealism, and honestly it doesn't have to. It's probably better that it doesn't because the game can come into its own aesthetic, and flying about with those wings looks like it could be satisfying for a solid 15 minutes, I don't know. Though it didn't look bad as Gods and Monsters, it did look a little bit open, a little bit flat, and also a little bit like it was trying too hard to be Breath of the Wild. Now it's got its own style and look, so it looks like it's trying to be itself, and that's a massive plus to begin with. So there are some good things I can say about this, as well as some concerns based on what we've seen, but this brings me to my next question. Is this going to be the game that Ubisoft Quebec wanted to make when they did Odyssey? Is this the idea that they pitched when the higher-ups went, content cool, but make it Assassin's Creed and make us lots of money, because the game concept is remarkably similar on paper, and if that is the case, then this is clearly the game that Quebec wanted to do from the beginning, and if that is so, could it be the game that Odyssey should have been? And by that I mean, not Assassin's Creed fully embrace the fantasy, and just be a safe space to experiment with the RPG formula that the Assassin's Creed brand clearly wasn't. And if that is how this game came to be, then I'm 100% for it. This is a new game, it's a new IP, there's no restrictions with it like there was with Assassin's Creed. There's no, we really want to do this, but we can't realistically, so we'll just see what we can get away with it. If we can do this, we can go all in and know that it'll work, because they're establishing something new. In the end of the day, however, what they do has to be at least to a certain quality, because in the end of the day the consumer is still paying money, with the standard edition sitting at around £50, which is full AAA price. For that money you can get a crummy 1998 Skoda listed on Auto Trader, and we've named it Keith. Say hello to Keith. I mean, it drives like going down a slide made of sandpaper, and there was an unopened Capri-Sun on the back seat, but I'm getting distracted, you get my point. There's also a gold edition going for £83.99, in which you get a bonus quest, a gear pack, and presumably the season pass. Knowing what Ubisoft has done in the past, I'd imagine that the season pass does not cover future gear packs, and if that is the case, then I hate to make assumptions, but it would appear as if this game is going to be monetized with microtransactions. To be fair, the gold edition appears to be followed by a description with a lot of words in it, so it should be offering quite a fair bit, but it's also indicative of a huge post-launch plan for extra content. If the season pass for this is anything like that of Origins and Odyssey, then it will hardly be worth the money, because while it'll have all the big stuff in it, it won't have all the gear packs that they'll drop at ridiculous prices, presumably of course, so there'll be no way to get your money's worth out of them no matter what you do, and also the whole point of a season pass is the convenience, and of course under most circumstances a little discount. If all the extra content they throw in afterwards in the post-launch isn't in the season pass, then it loses that convenience, and considering the season pass description on the website doesn't mention all DLC content post-release, I can imagine that being the case. Of course, whether or not you find that gold edition to be worth it is completely up to you. I don't want to say be careful or don't be careful, I'm just throwing my ideas at the wall. So to be fair to this game, I think it's probably best that I leave it at that. I think it's fair to say that as a consumer I'm a little bit skeptical of this game, just like you should be skeptical of all games as a consumer, because for one, games have gone from being one-time purchases and fun after the fact to schemes designed to devour the contents of your wallet. But let me know what you think about Immortals Fenyx Rising down in the comment section. Do you think it looks any good, or do you think it's going to be Odyssey all over again? Maybe you like Odyssey, I don't know. That's fine. All I ask is you keep it respectful down in the comment section and everything's good. Whichever way you cut it, it's clearly come a long way from what was Gods and Monsters. A bit of gameplay leaked for that not too long ago in the grand scheme of things, and it looked awful. It's either miles better now or miles better looking, and I'm not entirely sure which it is yet. Obviously, this game isn't something that necessarily fusses me too much. I don't care if it's good or if it doesn't turn out so well, because in the end of the day, it's not attached to a franchise that I love, it's a new thing. It was a good talking point, and I did want to say something at the very least. But if you're interested and excited for this game, then I really do hope that it's everything that you're after, and also everything that Ubisoft Quebec has imagined it to be without too much corporate fuckery, which I must emphasize is not on them. They don't get a say whether or not they have to monetize their game, or how much time they get or anything like that. But anyway, that concludes today's video, so thank you all for watching this. I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, share the channel with your friends and all that wonderful stuff. That would be fantastic. And with any luck, I'll be catching you all very soon with another video at some point, but until next time, take care and goodbye.